He stepped up to the podium, looked my father dead in the eye and said, "This one's for the kid you threw away." Then he pulled out the envelope. The whole gym froze, flashbulbs popped. My father shifted in his seat, and I just smiled through my tears.
You'd think family is supposed to love you unconditionally, but mine has always been a little different. They love you when you make them proud. They love you when you follow the rules. They love you when you fit into the box they built long before you were born. I never fit into that box. I was 22 when I got pregnant with David. No wedding, no husband, just me, a college dropout, and a growing belly. My father didn't speak to me for months, and when he finally did, it was just to say I had embarrassed the family. I'll never forget how he said it. "You're throwing your life away for a mistake." But David was never a mistake. He was the first thing I ever got right. His father, my ex, left when David was barely 2. Said he wasn't ready to be a dad. And just like that, it was me and my son against the world. My family called us the broken branch on the family tree. But I didn't care. I worked 3 jobs, went back to school at night, cooked dinner half asleep, and kissed scraped knees while calculating overdue bills. And through it all, David never complained. He was quiet, observant. One of those kids who always watched the room before speaking. Smart, too. So smart it scared me sometimes. When he was 8, he asked me why we never went to Grandma and Grandpa's for Christmas like his cousins did. I told him they were busy. The truth? We weren't invited. Birthdays came and went. No cards, no calls. Meanwhile, my siblings were posting photos of ski trips with their kids, all funded by my father's so-called legacy account. Every grandchild got a college fund when they were born. Every single one. Except mine. I tried to hide that from David. Tried to make sure he never felt it. But kids know. They know when they're being left out. They know when they're not wanted. And still, he smiled. He studied hard. He made honor roll every year without anyone clapping for him but me. One time I caught him staring at a photo of my dad holding my niece at her graduation. He didn't say anything, just looked at me and asked, "Was he ever proud of you?" I didn't know what to say, because I honestly didn't know. My father never raised his voice. He didn't have to. His disappointment was always quiet, but heavy, like a stone around your neck. You learn to carry it without noticing it's slowly pulling you under. But I refused to let David sink. I told him, "You don't need anyone to believe in you, as long as you believe in yourself." And I meant it. But deep down, I also knew kids need more than that. They need to be seen, to be heard, to be celebrated. And if my family wouldn't give that to him, then I would find a way to make the world listen. So I stayed quiet, even when it hurt, even when my dad looked at him and saw a mistake. I smiled and waited, because I knew something they didn't. My son wasn't just going to succeed. He was going to stand on a stage one day, look every single one of them in the eye, and prove that being born into a broken home doesn't mean you come out broken. It means you come out stronger. And on that day, they would remember the moment they left him behind. For years, I avoided family gatherings, not because I wasn't invited, but because I knew what waited for me there. The smiles that didn't reach their eyes, the polite questions that always circled back to what I hadn't done, and the subtle reminders that I'd never be one of them again. But David had just turned 17, and I thought, maybe it was time. The gathering was at my brother Jason's house. Big backyard, glassy pool, matching outfits on the twins. The kind of life that photographs well. We arrived with a store-bought pie and a bottle of lemonade. I watched David take a deep breath before stepping out of the car. He always tried, even when it was awkward, even when it hurt. Inside, my nieces and nephews crowded the table with new phones, talked about college tours, debated East Coast versus West. David just sat quietly, sipping his lemonade, nodding when someone spoke to him. which wasn't often. Then it happened. Jason was bragging about the new trust setup for his kids, how their college funds were fully optimized. Someone, probably his wife, chimed in. "Oh yeah, once the twins got their trust set up, it made all the grandkids equal." There was a pause, a flicker, a shift in the air. Then someone muttered it, low, flat, almost like they didn't realize it had left their mouth. "Well, except David." My hand froze mid-pour. David looked down at his plate. No one said anything else. No correction, no apology, not even an awkward laugh to cover the moment. Just silence, the kind that confirms everything you were afraid of. My stomach twisted, but I didn't let it show. I just smiled, that same practice smile I'd worn at 22 when I told my parents I was keeping the baby. I waited until David walked outside before I followed my father into the den. He was pouring scotch, his usual afternoon ritual. Didn't even look at me when I asked, "Why didn't David get a college fund?" He sipped, slow, then finally turned. "Amy, he's from a broken home. Let's not pretend he'll make it to an Ivy." My breath caught, not because I was surprised, but because hearing it out loud cut deeper than I expected. "You gave $50,000 to Emily's kid who barely passed high school," I said. "But you won't help mine?" He shrugged. "Emily's married, stable. They did things right, you didn't." That's when I realized it wasn't just about money, it was punishment. For breaking their illusion of perfection, for surviving without them. "You think money makes someone worthy?" I asked quietly. He turned his back to me. "I think David will be fine if he's half as tough as you pretend to be." That was his version of compassion. A backhanded compliment with a jagged edge. I walked out without another word, found David standing near the fence, looking out at the neighbor's house. He didn't ask me what happened, didn't need to. He just said, "We can go now if you want." And we did. As I drove home, hands tight on the wheel, I kept thinking about the word he used. Accept. The way it landed in the room, the way no one challenged it. My son was an exception, not because he failed, not because he misbehaved, but because he was mine. And in my father's world, that made him less. That night, I watched David do his homework at the kitchen table. Same table we'd shared for every meal, every spelling test, every scraped knee conversation. And I made another promise to myself. If they couldn't see his worth, I'd make sure the world did. The weeks after that gathering were quiet, almost too quiet. David buried himself in schoolwork, and I pretended everything was normal. But something inside me had shifted. I couldn't let it go. I kept replaying that moment in the den, my father's voice, his words. Why waste it on him? And I started to wonder, was it ever even a mistake? Or had they planned to cut David out from the start? Then one weekend, my mother called. She asked me to come by and help her organize old family records. I almost said no, but something told me to go. When I got there, she looked tired, smaller somehow, as if years of silence had finally started weighing on her. She handed me a box labeled Trust Documents and asked me to file them in the cabinet in her study. That's when I saw it. A folder tucked behind a stack of old tax returns, misfiled, or maybe purposely hidden. Cream-colored paper, gold emblem, legal, cold. At first, I thought it was just a copy of the trust agreements I already knew existed. But then I saw the addendum, dated 2 years after David was born. And there it was, in black ink, stamped and signed. Any grandchildren born of Amy, redacted, are not entitled to this educational gift. I blinked, read it again. My stomach dropped, not just excluded, not forgotten, erased. It wasn't a passive oversight, it was deliberate, legal, signed off by both of my parents. I took the document into the kitchen, held it out with a shaking hand. My mother didn't even look surprised. She just sighed. "It was your father's decision," she said softly. But you signed it too." She didn't respond, just stirred her tea like I hadn't spoken. "How long have you known David was excluded?" "Since the beginning," she whispered. "Your father didn't want to reward recklessness." I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the woman who had once held my hand through childbirth, and realized she had quietly helped cut her grandson out of his future. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw every porcelain cup off her stupid antique shelf, but I didn't. I just stood there and listened. She kept talking, and somehow it got worse. "Jason and Emily didn't agree at first," she added, like that made it better. "But they understood it was for the good of the family's image. They knew, my siblings, the ones who posted birthday wishes to David on Facebook, who shook his hand at holidays, who said things like, 'He's such a good kid.' They had known for years. They let him sit at tables surrounded by kids who were promised futures, while his was decided in whispers and legal clauses he'd never seen. I left without another word, got into my car, slammed the door, and screamed until my throat burned. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about how far people will go to erase you when you don't make them look good, and how easily they can justify it, for the family, for appearances, for legacy. When I got home, David was on the couch reading. He looked up. "Everything okay?" I stared at him for a long time, my son, my beautiful, brilliant son, and I thought about what that document meant, what it tried to say, that he didn't belong, that he wasn't worth investing in. I wanted to tell him everything, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I figured out how to take this pain and turn it into something he could hold. Something stronger than a college fund. Stronger than a name on a family tree. "Yeah," I said finally. "Everything's just fine." Because now I had something more powerful than anger. I had the truth. And I was going to use it. The next few days blurred. I went to work. I cooked dinner. I smiled when David made jokes about finals. I paid the bills and folded the laundry and did everything I was supposed to do. But inside, I was falling apart. I kept seeing that line in my head. Any grandchildren born of Amy? As if I'd committed some crime so shameful that even my child, my heart, deserved to be written out of existence. I barely slept. I started waking up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I did fail. Maybe David would have had a better shot if he'd been born into someone else's life. And then one night, I broke. It was late, past midnight. David had gone to bed hours earlier. I was in the kitchen, sitting on the cold tile floor, a bottle of wine half finished beside me, the trust document spread across my lap like a verdict. My hands were shaking. I don't remember crying, but I must have, because my face was soaked. My body felt like it had run a marathon in silence, exhausted, empty. And then, I heard footsteps. David stood in the doorway in his pajama pants, his hair a mess, blinking sleep from his eyes. He didn't speak at first, just walked over, sat down next to me, and looked at the paper in my lap. He recognized it. Somehow, I knew he did. Then he said it. Quiet, steady, no anger in his voice, no resentment, just understanding. "It's okay, Mom, I already knew. I just didn't want to see you hurt." I looked at him, stunned. "How?" I whispered. He shrugged. "I figured it out a long time ago. I'd hear them talking when they thought I wasn't listening. The way Grandpa would act like I didn't exist unless it was time for a photo. The way Aunt Emily always gave me the good luck scholarships talk while her kids picked dorm furniture with their fund money. I covered my mouth, my heart splitting open. He saw everything, every slight, every exclusion, every fake smile at every holiday dinner, and he carried it all, silently, to protect me. I wanted to apologize, to tell him I should have fought harder, shouted louder, stormed into that house and demanded he be treated like the others. But before I could, he touched my hand. Don't be sorry. I don't need their money." His voice sharpened, eyes burning with quiet intensity. "I'll earn my future." There was something in the way he said it that made me sit up straighter. It wasn't just teenage bravado. It wasn't some wounded pride. It was clarity, purpose. He had been waiting too, watching, collecting every bruise, every slight, every dismissal, filing them away, not as pain, but as fuel. And now, he was done waiting. I wiped my face, pulled him close, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that maybe we didn't need the validation of a trust fund or a family name. Maybe we didn't need anything from them at all. Maybe David's revenge wouldn't be loud or messy or cruel. Maybe it would be something much more powerful. Success. The kind that no one could take credit for. The kind that made people shift uncomfortably in their seats when they realized they had underestimated him. The kind that silences a room. I didn't say anything else that night, just held him as he rested his head on my shoulder. My son, the one they threw away, but not broken. No, he was sharpening, and something told me they'd see it soon. After that night, something shifted in David. He didn't cry, he didn't rant, he didn't even bring it up again. But I could feel it, in the way he started watching people more closely, the way he asked about upcoming family events, the way he carried his phone in his pocket with a small clip-on mic I didn't recognize until much later. He had gone quiet, but focused. At the next family dinner, he was polite, kind, sat next to his grandfather and helped him carry in a box of wine. No one noticed the phone in his jacket pocket recording every word. He caught my father chuckling to Uncle Brian in the living room after dessert. "That kid's soft. No father, no chance." They thought they were safe behind wine glasses and whispered jokes. But David was listening, recording, archiving. At another event, a birthday party for one of the Golden grandkids, he lingered by the bar and caught my sister Emily say, "Honestly, I'm glad Dad didn't fund him. Amy's kid would have wasted it on some useless liberal arts degree." Every time they said something cruel, dismissive, smug, David didn't flinch. He just filed it away. At school, he doubled down on everything. Late nights, extra credit, debate team, robotics. I watched him push himself past exhaustion and still wake up with purpose in his eyes. Something was burning inside him, and he was feeding it daily. Then one day, he handed me a spreadsheet. 17 college applications. "Just in case," he said with a smirk. "I figured I'd give the admissions officers a little choice." He applied to Ivy Leagues, state schools, out-of-state programs, scholarships, honors tracks, each one tailored, perfected. But there was one application, one submission, that wasn't like the others. It was for the graduation committee. They had announced an open call for student speakers. Seniors could submit personal essays, and a panel would vote on the one that would be read aloud at the ceremony. David didn't even tell me he was submitting anything. I found out after the decision had already been made. He came home with the envelope in his hand, white, stamped with the school crest. He handed it to me without a word. Inside, a simple note. "Congratulations, David. Your piece, Invisible Legacy, has been selected as the 2025 graduation speech." I looked up at him, stunned. He just smiled. "It wasn't just an essay," he said. "It was my voice. My revenge was never loud. It was undeniable." I read the essay that night after he went to bed. It was brilliant, devastating. He spoke about being born into a family where love was conditional and futures were allocated like stock options. About watching his cousins unwrap their destinies while he was taught to be grateful for scraps. About what it means to grow up invisible in the house where you should have felt safest. But it wasn't bitter. It was precise, reflective, powerful. He didn't name names. He didn't have to. Every sentence held weight. Every paragraph landed like a quiet blow. By the time I finished reading, I was in tears. He didn't need a confrontation. He didn't need to scream or beg to be seen. He had built his revenge out of resilience and weaponized their silence into a spotlight they couldn't escape. It was elegant, ruthless in its grace. And I knew, without a doubt, that graduation day would be the moment everything turned. Graduation day arrived under a bright June sun. The gymnasium was packed, folding chairs lined wall to wall, rows of students in maroon caps and gowns buzzing with anticipation. Parents, siblings, teachers, and grandparents filled the bleachers, craning their necks toward the stage. I sat near the front, my heart thudding in my chest. David was calm, too calm. He hadn't said a word about the speech since getting selected. I had read it once, but I had a feeling what he'd written wasn't what he planned to say. Then the principal stepped up to the mic. "It is my honor to announce this year's valedictorian, David Mitchell." Applause, cheers, the sound of hundreds of hands clapping, echoing through the gym. David stood up, straightened his gown, and walked to the stage. As he stepped up to the podium, the applause died down. A hush settled over the room. He took a breath, lifted his eyes, and began. "People told me I wouldn't make it, that I was wasted potential because of where I came from, because I didn't have what others were born into." He paused. His voice was calm, measured, but there was steel behind every word. "I used to believe them. I used to think I was behind in a race I didn't even ask to run. But what they forgot is that potential isn't handed down in checks. It's not a birthright. It's not found in last names or bank accounts." He looked up, past the first few rows, straight toward the section where my family sat, directly at my father. "It's built, earned, proven." I saw my father's face tighten, his arms crossed, eyes narrowing. David reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. That envelope, the trust document. "This was supposed to erase me," he said. "This paper right here was proof I didn't belong, that someone believed my future didn't matter, that I was a mistake." Gasps rippled through the room. A few heads turned toward the section where my family sat. I saw Emily shift uncomfortably. Uncle Brian went pale. My mother's eyes widened. David unfolded the paper and held it up. "This clause says I'm not entitled to the same opportunities as my cousins, because my mother raised me alone, because we weren't perfect enough for legacy funding." He let the words hang, heavy. I could feel the gym holding its breath. Then he smiled, soft, calm. But what they didn't realize is that I never needed this to become who I am. He turned slightly, motioning to the side of the stage. A staff member handed him a folder. 17 applications, 7 full-ride offers, 3 Ivy Leagues, 1 acceptance to the university I've dreamed of since I was 12. He paused again, scanning the crowd. I got here without their money, without their name, without their belief in me. Then his voice softened. Because I had something more powerful than all of that. He looked down toward me. I had a mother who taught me to fight quietly, to rise with dignity, to smile even when they slammed the doors. So, to the people who doubted me, who tried to erase me, I only have one thing to say. He looked up again, right at my father. Thank you. You taught me exactly what I never want to become. The gym erupted. Applause burst through the room like thunder. People stood, clapped, some cheered. I saw a teacher wipe tears from her eyes. Students shouted his name. Cameras flashed. But the section where my family sat? Silent, frozen. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Emily stared at the floor. My mother, stone-faced. And I saw it all, the shame, the unraveling, the moment they realized the legacy they tried to bury him with had only made him stronger. David stepped down from the podium. The applause followed him off the stage like a wave. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He had said everything they needed to hear. And in that moment, I wasn't just proud, I was free. The applause rolled like thunder. People were standing now, students, teachers, parents, strangers, cheering for my son, for his voice, for the truth he spoke into a room that had spent years pretending he didn't matter. I stood slowly. My legs weren't moving. My heart was. He did it. My son, my quiet, kind, steady David, had just stood in front of a gymnasium full of people and turned his pain into power. And I, his mother, stood in the front row, unable to do anything but weep and smile. Across the gym, I caught sight of my father, his arms still crossed, his jaw clenched tight. He didn't clap, he didn't speak, he didn't even look at me. Instead, he slowly stood, straightened his suit, and walked out. No goodbye, no apology, no storming or shouting, just silence. For once, he had no control. The people he used to intimidate weren't looking at him anymore. They were looking at David. David stepped down from the stage, holding the folder of offers in one hand and the now creased trust document in the other. But when he reached me, he let it all go. He pulled me into a hug so tight I felt the years in it. Every late-night worry, every insult I swallowed, every meal I skipped to make sure he had what he needed. And then he whispered, "You gave me everything I needed, Mom, and now I'm free." That's when I lost it. Because I remembered the nights I thought I was failing him, the mornings I didn't know how I'd pay the bills, the years of being told I'd ruined my life. But here he was, not ruined, risen. He turned to his classmates, who rushed toward him like he was a rock star. Teachers shook his hand, some even hugged him. I heard someone say, "That was the best speech we've ever had." Another said, "He's going places, big places." I sat back down, overwhelmed, not just by the moment, but by what it meant. David hadn't just made a statement. He'd flipped the legacy script. My family had spent years weaving this lie, that we were less than, that David didn't belong, that we should be grateful for crumbs while others dined. And he'd burned it down with truth, dignity, and zero bitterness. No revenge fantasy, no public attack, just a mirror. And they couldn't stand to look into it. I saw my sister Emily whisper something to her husband. She looked rattled. Maybe for the first time in her life, she saw what silence could cost, what loyalty to the wrong people really meant. I didn't hate her, not anymore. Pity was all I had left. Because while they had been handed futures in trust accounts, David had built his from scratch, out of discipline, heart, and grit. And the best part? They couldn't touch it, couldn't claim it, couldn't destroy it. As the gym started to empty and graduates flooded the halls with flowers and diplomas and teary-eyed parents, I watched David one last time, laughing, hugging, whole. That's when the voiceover played in my mind, not for the audience, but for me. For the years I stayed quiet. For the nights I cried behind a locked door. They gave every grandchild a future, except mine, but he built one anyway, and no one can take that away.